Hey, what's up, Dean? Super Performance at the shop today. We got Jim's 70 Chevelle. It's just a box on the grill support. And we got Jonathan's Ranger. The header is not on the table. It is on the truck. Bolted up, sealed up. Coils are all on, wires are all on. Well, I guess not, huh? Could actually finish the job. There we go. Okay, now wires are all on. So this bank is 100% done. I already tested the steering shaft. I could actually slide it down, bring it up, latch it on, hook it up down there. That all worked out. I did end up having to lift the motor. I had to pull the valve cover, shift the motor over to get the header in. It wasn't too bad once I did that, and the motor mounts come right out. Super easy to bolt. I actually left the nuts off of them this time because I assume I'm going to have to do the same on this side. I highly doubt there will be as much room to push this over then, but I'll make it work. Hopefully. Yeah, I'll make it work. But yeah, so I'm happy. The fuel rails, unfortunately, are on back order, which that really sucks. But is what it is. I have plenty of other things to do. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on this one. I used this style coil rather than the LS1 or whatever they'd be, the real flat coils, because it puts the wire way down here and makes it have to loop, and I just hated it, especially with that tube. It kind of forced that wire to be against the tube. Even though I have those thermal boots on there, I don't always trust the thermal boots 100%. But you can see I got all the plugs in. I had to take the plugs out. Well, I mean, I took the plugs out cautiously so I don't break the plugs. The header is actually, all the tubes are welded from the inside, and I just did welds on the outside along the top, and except for that one because I can't get my cup in there good enough, but that one has it along the sides and the bottom. These have it top, bottom, and then there's a couple other tacks. But the wires, you can kind of see they're like dead center of the tube, so they're not, none of the boots are touching. So we're moving along, getting somewhere with it. Went through Jim's Chevelle a little bit, not super thorough, but I went through it a bunch. I was having an issue this morning. I went to log cold start because I haven't cold started, and it was like 46, 47 degrees. I'll post a screenshot of it. Took a screenshot, and the car fired right up, but then had a misfire. 2 cylinders were misfiring, which I got rid of with the updates. So I was a little disturbed by that, or perplexed, or whatever you want to call it. So I started poking around, and I had noticed there's a bunch of butt connectors just doing some crazy stuff. There's one down there, there's one there. That is actually the AC clutch. There's one there that splits on the bottom side into 2 wires. I don't know where it goes behind the fender. Then I came over. He's got 1 relay for 2 fans. We don't do that. I wire, especially with this being a Dominator, you have like near unlimited inputs and outputs. So there's no point in kind of skipping steps, I guess you could say. Especially on that harness there, that is your input and output plug with those 2 wires that are cut. Some of them are actually deep in, and some of them are cut. But you get 4 inputs, 4 outputs on that harness. And the standard layout is fan 1, fan 2, then there's air conditioner, disconnect at wide open throttle, and IAC kick. When you turn the AC on, it kicks the IAC up to hold the RPM a little better. Neither one of those are utilized. He has 2 outputs used. One is fan, one is, I have no idea yet. I haven't traced it to where it goes. I just found the fan one. There's this bundle of joy here for the negative. It feels like a butt connector that is connected to this wire of the negative, which in some ways is okay, but I prefer not to have a butt connector on that main engine harness, the main power harness, the ECU harness, the red, the positive, and the negative. Run them direct, their own separate terminals. Like he's got the red tied, he's got the red tied into something else, and you can see there's a bunch of the strands broken from where it was crimped. So there's minimal strands holding that on. There's only a couple. I'm not going to touch it because it might break. And obviously the fuel lines, I would never do rubber, especially considering like this says low permeation requirements per carb executive order. It says it's fuel injection hose, but everybody knows with the ethanol that's in the fuel today, it breaks down any kind of rubber. We have a lot of trouble with the fuel pump hoses inside the tank. I'm just looking at the throttle cable and I just found why it binds up. I think possibly it goes down there, so it's a mile long. I bet I'd be willing to bet it absolutely is. Oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, you don't need all that throttle cable. You don't. That's why they make this kit the way they do. You can pull this collar off and you can cut the sheet down to the size you need. And that play is why he's part of the reason why he's not getting full throttle. I noticed that. Don't like the air filter. That's just a given. But the big thing I found, I mean, I didn't find it like it's an amazing discovery, but these are all your Holly wires. So you've got no fuses that I know of for any of those. Those are direct power that you could put a fuse tap in, but there's no fuse tap. But then the fact that you have multiple wires coming off of it. You got 2 coming off the battery, then you got 2 more right here crimped together. You can't do that with the Holly. It specifically tells you not to do things like this. Then you've got all the ignition wires. There's a yellow one here too. I'm not 100%, or a white one, not yellow. I don't know what exactly this white one goes to. I can't remember. I know the red with the white stripe is 12 volt key on. The other red is 12 volt key on for the transmission. All should be on separate circuits, especially when you have old school fuse box like this. Definitely should be fused and off a relay. The other issue I have is I'm not sure what all these grounds are for, but they go out in that same harness or near it with it. I can't tell 100%. They're on the fuse box bolt. That is not a ground. That's probably one of the dirtiest grounds you can use. So unless your firewall is grounded really, really good, you know, you're not going to get a good fuse connection or a ground connection. And I noticed it started freaking out the dashboard, and in the center here was coming up low voltage. It was like a 9.7 volts, even though this volt gauge was showing 13 or something like that. And I would turn the key off and the check engine light, I don't know if it, I think it's check engine light and a blinker would light up. and I was kind of weirded out by that. So that was interesting. Then, oh, actually, the other output is the speedometer. It must be, because I pin mapped it and it worked, and then I unpin mapped it and it didn't work. So it's got to be for the speedometer, which is way off for some reason. And I'd imagine it's somewhere in a Dakota Digital, but I have to call them and get the specific instructions for this type with the switch, because I started tinkering and I kind of got it to go to the setup and in the speedometer, but I couldn't figure out like the pulses and stuff like that. I just couldn't get that dialed in. Like I couldn't get that to dial over to that setting. Everything else works. RPM, fuel gauge, I tried to get it to the right ohms, but then I'm kind of like, man, how does it know what size tank? So there must be another setting, but again, I couldn't get it to that setting. So I need to get the specific instructions for this dash, which is just a simple full call to them. He also has power seats, which is that big red wire, which was direct to battery, no fuse. Well, he said it popped the fuse, but I don't know what fuse it would pop. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what fuse it would pop in here because there's not a lot of fuses. So just initially going through some quick stuff. I know we have wiring issues. I know we have like a radio frequency issue. And that's kind of a common thing with a lot of these Holley installs that I keep running across. There's a lot of people wire them up and, you know, they swear by their wiring. They did such a good job. But in reality, they did a horrible job. So, yeah, stressing out a little bit. But I made him a list of things I would immediately do. Fuel line, or wiring harness, fuel lines, rewire to Holley the correct way, and kind of change the routing of some of the wires, which I didn't tell him that. I'm just going to do it because that's what I do. I enjoy wiring because in a sense it kind of makes or breaks a build, sort of aesthetically anyways. It you know, it makes it look really good or makes it look really bad. Like, you know, none of this is too bad. They took a factory coil harness and he loomed it up good, so that's fine. I'm fine with that. I don't like the fact that he has adapters for the injectors. So these are EV1s. I can buy a kit, which I most likely will buy a kit to change the multi-tech connector to an EV1 connector. We kind of discussed possibly doing a turbo on this car, which would be sick. That'd be really, really cool. Be super easy to mount it too, because you just mount it right here, get the right header, and could possibly potentially run a downpipe. He said fender exit, which I think he's a little crazy on that one, but it's his car. We'll let it ride. Yeah, so I'm making a long video here. That's where we're at. I ordered a, oh boy, auto wire. I think it's auto wire harness. It's not auto wire. That's one of the ones you see on Finnegan's and all of them. Big fan of Finnegan's channel. So I can't remember the name of it. But yeah. I'm gonna put the Ranger up and check out the collector. Okay, so I ended up not liking where the V-band ended up on the collector. Basically the collector was sitting right here, the V-band, was sitting roughly right here. You can kind of see the collector points a little straight. So I cut a little turn, welded it to the collector, also welded in the O2 bung, which I should have enough room to get it in, and it keeps it up on an angle. So I just got done putting this together. I got a little bit on the top that I got to do with a mirror, which is not a big deal. It fused together pretty good. So that header's done. As soon as it cools off, oh, the O2 is not hot. Hold on. Hot. So I grabbed the O2 out of the kit. It fits, and the wires got, it's got enough room. It's not super tight. I didn't tighten it in yet, but it fits perfect. It's almost a little too high, but it's okay where it is. And now I can take and continue the 3-inch over and under. Once this one's done, I will run this pipe first. And like I said, most likely I'll end up cutting this cross member out. I'll take the rivets off. That's all there is, I believe, is those 2 rivets there and here, and I'll be able to get rid of that cross member. And then I can keep the 2 pipes tucked higher up. So run them back and blah blah blah. I will have to set the truck on the ground, see how much space I have, because I have a tendency to run the tubing with the axle drooped, and this is a lowering kit in a sense that it's axle over. So I imagine if I keep them up above the frame rail, and you can see the stops have a little mark on them from where they're kind of bouncing. But if I keep them above the frame rail, I should be all right. Yeah, I should be all right. So only thing left back here to get out is that, which I got to get the spare tire out, which I don't know if I have a tool for it. I tried, but I think it's locked up in there. So I tried to loosen it, but it wasn't loosening. So I did spray a bunch of PB in there. We'll see what happens. And then I got to take the bed bolts out and swap them with the new ones, because those are too short. The long ones are the rotted ones, so I have new ones to go in there. And then I'm gonna get a couple cans of undercoating. Once everything is done, I will roll the truck forward and I'll lift the bed back up off on the lift. I'll push the truck out and I'm gonna undercoat the whole underside of the bed. That's the repair I did, and I don't want it to rot away like it was, and there's some other areas of rust and stuff, so wire wheel it and undercoat it so he gets a little extra life out of it. But yeah, for today I am done. Tomorrow we will see. I'm most likely gonna get interrupted 9,000 times like I did today. I'm gonna try my best to get the other header together. I've been saying it and saying it and saying it, and now it's time to do it. So one is done, 97.5% done anyways. That little weld across the top, I'll get that. But yeah, that's it for this one. Appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of new videos that put out all the time as much as I can. Have a good day.